Now, as we've got the bike secure on the Pitbull rear stand with the spools, what we're going to do now is move to the front of the motorcycle and show you the different products Pitbull has that can be used on the front. So the first stand we're going to go ahead and use is the new front stand, sometimes also known as a triple tree stand or a headstock stand. Now, when you buy your bike and you go get one of these stands, you need to make sure that this pin that's located here is the correct pin for your motorcycle. Don't use anything but the right pin. And I showed the guys here on the set why. We had an earlier model GSXR pin which was a little thinner, so when you put that in, it would come up onto the bodywork and try and lift the bike on the bodywork, which is a complete no-no because you'll break all the plastic. So please be aware that if you buy one of the new front stands, you'll need to make sure you have the correct pin for the lower triple clamp. So when you're looking at the stand, you can see the pin here, and as we said before, it has many different diameters. So this pin will locate into the steering stem in the bottom of the triple clamp. All the steering stems these days are hollow specifically for this purpose. So you'll go ahead and locate this into the stem in the open slot, and once you've located it, you will firmly place the pin into the housing so it sits against the recessed shelf here. Then you know that the pin's firmly in place. Then you can lift the bike up in the air. Now, putting this in, you go from one side or the other, this way or this way. And I'm going to go from here for now and hold the stand in both hands. What we've got to do now very carefully is put this in without A, scratching the paint, or B, getting caught up in the brake lines, and we'll give you a close-up inside. So once you get that located in, swing the stand around and hold it there, and then switch down here so that you can see the triple tree and you can locate the pin firmly in place like that. Once that's in place, tension the stand, make sure the front wheel is kind of in the middle, somewhere there, and then you're going to lift up on the stand. Now, personally, I prefer to hold the bike here and use the leverage point here to push down. Nice thing about this particular stand is even if you hold it and put it to the ground, it's not going to trap your fingers. So the use of this stand is many-fold. In one operation, you can take the wheel out, you can change the brakes, the brake pads, you can also pull the fender, you can pull the forks off, you can pretty much do all of that very simply and very quickly with this one stand. So it's kind of a one-piece does all. So now onto the forklift stand. What this does, these two locating pieces here fit under the fork leg. Now, there's a difference in the way that it works with a radial brake setup, which is this configuration here, versus a more traditional sport bike setup where the brake caliper is held higher up the fork. You never suspend a bike by this stand on its own because there is no security in what it's done. This stand works dependent on the back of the bike being secure on the rear stand. So make sure you do that first. So let's put this stand on. You have to be very careful in how you place the forklift stand and make sure these don't float like that. So if you get it wrong, it will turn in the stand, but if you go slowly and carefully like that, just as we did with the other stand, the bike will locate itself perfectly. Again, you want to make sure the forks are on the edges of both of these components here so that when you lift the bike, it is balanced on the stand. So now that we've got the bike in the air, what's recommended, of course, is that this forward locating pin is in line with the center of the fork. If you have it towards the back of the fork, then clearly there's a danger the bike's going to roll forward off the stand. So when you're putting this up, make sure your leading locating edge here is in line with the center of the axle. Now onto my personal favorite, because I use these at the track all the time. It's nice to have the forklift stand because you can pull the wheels in and out really quick, service the brakes fast, and get everything done. You can do that without the spar being up here and being in the way of your hands when you're trying to work in this area. So that keeps this work surface area here around the wheels and the brakes wide open. If you've got your wheel out and you want to pull the forks out and service the forks, then Pitbull offers this converter stand. where we've got the pin as we did in the new front stand, and we also have 2 locating dowels here which will fit into the stand. So this is the forklift converter. So let's pull this one down, actually build it into the unit. So we're going to go ahead, set the 2 pins through in between the legs. We'll pull out the securing pins, which will then locate in place. And then just like before, now we have, instead of a 1-piece stand, a 2-piece stand. And we'll go through exactly the same process of putting the pin into the location underneath the triple, locating the pin in the hole in the steering stem, make sure it's seated correctly, all the way to the top, which it is. Center the stand up, hold the bike, and lift it up in the air. So this is a lot more versatile, especially when you've got stuff to do and you want an open work area. You don't get your hands caught in here, for example, when you're trying to put the wheel in. So this is my personal favorite. I love this thing. It works great at the track and at home. Next up on the plethora of offerings from Pitbull are the jack stands. Now, some of you may have noticed that the bike suddenly magically acquired some rear sets. And the reason for that is in order to show how the jack stands work in a much more safe environment than using stock rear sets, we went ahead and put fixed rear sets in place that we'll use on the bike at the track. So how do these work? Well, you have your push pin here. You can set your height where you want and they'll lock in to any of the one given holes here. That will set the height of your foot peg. Primary use of this piece of equipment is when you want to get shocks in and out, not for changing the rear wheel. You're much better off using a rear stand for that. So let's go ahead, fit one of these to this side of the bike. And the beauty of it is this is a 1-person operation. Probably many of you at home have used jack stands where somebody's had to lift the bike in the air, you've had to get the jack stands underneath it, put it to the right height. That gets rid of all this nonsense and makes it a really easy 1-person operation. So let's put these in place. So now how do you fit this to the bike? As I said, we've got the solid mount foot pegs here from Vortex. So go ahead, put the jack stand up, pull the clip, and then pull this up until it hits the peg. Come down to the next appropriate hole, and then we're set. What you want to do is make sure it's not touching the rear set, because then you're going to scratch it, but it's just fractionally off it. The other side's already sized and located, so the next step in order to get the rear wheel off the ground is actually pretty simple. What we're going to do is hold the bike here, lift up on the rear stand, and we don't want the bike to move forward or backwards. So then make sure visually you're looking at both sides, you're located correctly, and now the bike is suspended. So now we can remove the rear wheel. We can very quickly get in there and work around pulling the bolts out for the shock and change the shock very quickly. Beautiful piece of equipment, super simple, does a great job. So if you're going to do any work at home on your own bike, it is very important that you get a good quality set of stands that allow you to put the bike up in the air so that the bike is safe and secure and you can work in an environment that's safe and secure.